My introduction. All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good afternoon, Will. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble, grateful that Will Ackerman accepted our invitation to the show. Will, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, sir.
So for the last 2 years, we've been living in crazy times with the COVID, whether you believe in the vaccine or not, how the COVID, the pandemic affected you and your life, your sanity, how you holding up, man?
Some damage. My personal feeling about COVID is the fear of COVID is far worse than COVID. And I think the isolation that has resulted from that fear has been more damaging than anything else. I guess I'm one of those guys that has the X on the forehead. I mean, in my 70s, I'm in perfect health, thank God. But it's been sort of frightening, and you have to be paranoid, and you have to wear a mask, and all the rest of it. I'm fed up. I mean, I'm not throwing caution to the wind, but at the same time, I think I have made the decision that it's time to go back to life. We haven't done that much work in the studio. We've had a bit of work, but not much. But I'm reaching out again and looking forward to getting far busier again. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate that producing music is a living, but it's also something that I just adore doing. We're moving back. We have a week of sessions starting tomorrow as well. So we're back to it, thank God.
I'm glad, man. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you perhaps took, I don't know, guitar lesson or piano lessons?
Well, I started, first of all, I was adopted by the Ackerman family.
Yeah.
I have done a heritage, and I've done through DNA and the rest of it. I'm very Germanic. The Ackerman family who adopted me, Ackerman being a German name as well. We lived in Germany for a couple of years. Lived in England for a year. Being a guy who had a free ride at Stanford University, where my dad was the head of the English department, I came within a couple of quarters of graduating from Stanford, and I realized that if I didn't get out of there, I would not know anything else about life, because my father remarried a woman again who was head of the English department at Smith and Radcliffe, so it was all academia. And I had to get out before I was an academic. I just in the last month even, I got a email from Jesse Parker, who was my piano teacher when I was a kid. I think maybe 12 or something like that. And the letter read, "Dear Mr. Ackerman, are you by any chance the dreadful piano student I had in Palo Alto in 1960, whatever it was?" And I wrote back, actually with a letter again, and said, "Yeah, Jesse, that was me." And he said, "I want you to know that I've been teaching 2 of your compositions in my music class at the University of Texas." And he said the most lovely thing. He said, "I was a young, egotistical teacher, and I hadn't learned yet that you need to adjust all of your teaching as much as humanly possible to this person that you're trying to teach." He said, "I had this one way of teaching." And, he said, when I realized that, in fact, this guy who I consider a very real composer, that I blew him off, basically. But it was a lovely little piece of interaction that we just had recently. I went to prep school here on the East Coast. My roommate there was Jim Baldwin, who we're still dear friends. His father was the head of the English department at Mount Hermon School, where we went. And then we went together to Stanford University, where my father was the head of the English department. We remained great friends. At some point, there's a long story, which probably we don't have time for, but the name Michael Kilmartin is a terribly important one in my life. Michael was my next door neighbor. I remember being about 12, and I heard the sound of an electric guitar coming from the Kilmartins' house, and I went over there, And in those days, you didn't even knock on doors. You know, if you're in the neighborhood, you just open the door and go upstairs. And there's Michael playing. He's an older kid. You know, he's the one you want to be. He's head of he's the football team and blah, blah, blah. And he's playing an electric guitar. And he taught me G and A minor. And I still think those are my two favorite chords in the world. And so that was that. Now let's fast forward to 1976. I have just recorded The Search for the Turtle's Navel, and it's being sold in one store, a bookstore in Palo Alto on University Avenue. I just brought in some new records, you know, more to sell. They're actually selling the thing. And I walk out, and coming down the street is Michael Kilmartin. I haven't seen him for a million years. And I told him this. I said, I made this little record, and you were the one who taught me my first chord. So here's this. And he called me up very soon. He said, can I have 10 more of those? I said, of course you can have 10 more of those. I'll wrap this up pretty quick, but it's a great, great story.
Yeah, yeah.
And he called me. He said, "Yeah, I need. Can give me 10 more of these. I'm going to go out. Yeah, I want to hand him a fine." And he called me up and he said, "Will, I am currently the radio promotion guy at Fantasy Records." He was then the guy promoting Creedence Clearwater Revival, which made him, in that moment, probably the most influential radio promo guy in the world. And he had sent this out to a certain number of stations. And he said, I have checked. They are all playing this record, and 8 of them are listing it as heavy airplay. And these are mega FM radio stations: Seattle, Portland, Denver, Minneapolis, Boston. You know, so instantaneously, my career took off, and that's the beginning of you know, where Windham Hill came from after doing my first record, and then having my cousin Alex DeGrassi being one of the guys who was pounding nails with me on my building crew. You know, Alex is, you know, just a monster player. I mean, he's a far better guitarist than I am. And so it was all very organic. I really thought that I would have 300 or have 200 of these records left in my closet for the rest of my life, because the minimum order was 300. And I didn't ever dream I would sell 300 records. Of course, then, you know, Windham Hill just took off, and, you know, it became millions of records.
Feel free to feel free to elaborate on how you, well, before we ask you about how you put the first record together, but what kind of music were you listening in high school? Bands like, I don't know, Genesis or Pink Floyd or Peter Gabriel?
Well, sure, of course, Peter.
Beverly were popular. I mean, were you listening to the music or?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you know, I was a kid. I was listening to whatever pop music was going on.
Yeah.
That said, honestly, the record that I listened to more than anything else was the recording by Aldo Ciccolini on Angel Records of Eric Satie. I think that was the greatest influence on me in my whole life. But I was a teenager, you know, young guy who was listening to a lot of pop music, certainly Peter Gabriel. You know, I got caught up in the Beatles big time. But nothing in my life ever touched me more than Satie. I loved the third movement of Sibelius's Fifth. I loved some of his tone poems. I wasn't so much into Beethoven, even Mozart, but Sibelius, I loved a lot of his work. But Eric Satie was the guy who, in a way, gave me the permission to be simple. You know, harmonically complex, perhaps, but the point is that you don't need a lot of bells and whistles. You can be simple, and Satie gave me that freedom.
And then, so from your neighbor, you went from kind of electric guitar to acoustic guitar. I think I read somewhere that he lent you a guitar, you borrow a guitar. I mean, you have some ideas in your head. Perhaps you didn't have the means to ask your dad to get a guitar, but he ended up lending you a guitar, and then you start doing some chords, and eventually you decided to put that record together.
Yeah, I was influenced, to some degree. Well, I mean, Takoma Records was important to me. I mean, John Fahey started that, and then, signed Robbie Basho and Kotke. It was Kotke, of course, who kind of blew the doors off and made the label far more known. But Basho was a kind of a crazy guy and kind of pretentious too. But his concept, or his wish, was to create a classical discipline for steel string guitar, which had always been a folk instrument. He wanted it to go, away from sheer folk music, and he did. He contributed considerably to that concept, and I think it was Basho who encouraged my exploration of open tunics, which I am now the craziest person in the world. Essentially, every song that I've ever written has been in a different tuning. I didn't write them all down, but where a number of guitarists have experimented a bit with open tunings, but when I've now used something in the neighborhood of 130 tunings, clearly there's nobody more insane than I am.
And then when you put that record, I mean, that composition together, and well, you get to a point, well, what do I do with the stuff? I read somewhere that you end up borrowing money for your friend in order to put this baby together.
Yeah, true. I mean, it wasn't so much that I couldn't come up with the money, but somehow or other, I liked the idea of making it into kind of a community effort. I was making decent money, but there was something about having this group of friends help make this together. There was something very lovely about the society of it.
Yeah. And I think at the minimum order that you mentioned was like 300, and you say, well, yeah. I gotta gamble. I'm gonna take the risk. I will figure out what I do with the other 280 that doesn't sell. And
I mean, I expected, as I said, I expected to have 200 of those in my closet for the rest of my life, but it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, and then your neighbors help you out, and then after that, right? The album number. This is number 3. This is a beautiful piece as well. I don't have all the Windham Hill, but I have I don't know, like a 70s vinyl and like 40 CDs or something like that. So this is a beautiful piece as well, right?
Yeah, I'm proud of that record too. I mean, the sound of it became, Turtle's Navel was a nice recording, but yeah. between Turtle's Navel and It Takes a Year, I'd learned a lot about microphones, and I became more demanding in terms of sound quality. And then, of course, Windham Hill became famous for that, and half-speed masterings and pressing at RTI, that was pressing Sheffield for which were 1898 list pricing. Yeah. There were so many lovely things that happened. Meeting Stan, my engineer met Stan Ricker when they were at a convention of some sort, and he played him Stan. He played the record for Stan, and he's like, "Well, where I want to master. I want to master this." And he said, "Well, I don't know if we've got the money." He said, "Oh, no. I just because you've got Bernie Grunman and Stan Ricker, the two best mastering people in America at the time, and." So suddenly Stan Ricker is mastering my record and did it for free, just, went into the studio and did it on a Sunday. And then he asked Scott where we were going to press it. And it was Monarch or some, basic. He said, no. You're not going to press one of my things. You're going to go to RTI, Record Technology Incorporated. And I didn't know much about the record industry, but I knew that they were pressing Sheffield, and doing, these are $20 pressings. I called up Bill Bauer, who owned the place, and I said, "Bill, I've heard that you're willing to take my music, and I'm incredibly grateful, but there's no way I can possibly afford, what you're doing." And so I just didn't want to go off on the wrong foot here. He said, "Will, everyone at the plant absolutely loves this. and we think you're onto something, and we will give you the price, whatever you can do. And that was that. So I had suddenly first Stan Ricker and then Bernie Grunman as mastering people, and then RTI pressing Sheffield records for 1898. And so this was an interesting little detail of Windham Hill, is that it bespoke an incredible quality and pride, which people really, really sensed. And it was all just very fortuitous. It was just a matter of luck. Well, yes and no. I mean, it just happened that everything that was being done with such pride. And I don't mean to make myself seem particularly special, but you know, your heart is very much involved in this, and any opportunity you can have to make it as good as it can be. Well, and that just set the scene for Windham Hill. And you know, my cousin Alex DeCrossi and Liz Story, and of course George Winston. You know, we went from a company that was selling hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands to 100,000s and ultimately to millions.
Yeah, I like I think I like the strategy behind it. Let me explain what I mean. It's I'm kind of detail. I'm an engineer by trade, so I'm detail oriented, right? So I like the simplicity.
Yeah.
You know, I like the fonts that you used. At the time, this kind of plastic, you know, to cover was much better than anybody else was using, right? I like the fact that you included like a nice, you know, brochure about if the record is bad or, and it's a big difference. I mean, nowadays with social media and this and that, you know, I suppose that people are willing to pay a premium for whatever you get it. Yeah, but at the time you have it was a lot of work got involved. I mean, a good strategy, the good font, like I said, the plastic, the brochure inside. People, I don't know if they were looking for stuff like that, but I don't know if you were looking, but you notice the difference, right? If you go to a nice restaurant where people treat you well, yeah, the bill is more expensive, right? Versus you go to a restaurant where, you know, they're rushing you, the bathrooms are dirty, whatever. People pay the premium for that, for the experience, for, you know, and I see that, you know, at the beginning of your record label. So it obviously you have to have good music, of course, a good quality, but it was a lot of differences that they were involved in the process of creating a great record label, you know?
Yes, it just kept gaining momentum because people felt that pride, you know, that we were putting into this, you know? And all of those little details added up. People felt that it was different. And the fact that it was a 998 instead of 898, that was actually a calculated intellectual decision as much as it was a financial decision. Yes, it was slightly more expensive, but not that much because Bill Bauer is giving us a great deal and the rest of it. But I wanted it to feel like something premium. And frankly, as you were saying, it lived up to that expectation. But the fact, and I had distributors earlier on saying, no, you don't know, God, no, you can't go to 998. You won't be able to compete because, and I said, no, this is sending a message. It's sending a message of our pride in what we're doing. And and it clearly worked.
You know, and it's and people notice the difference, right? So if you go to, let's say, Blockbuster, I mean, Starbucks, right? And you pay, you know, $3.50 for a cup of coffee. You're paying for the experience in the bar versus paying $1.50 in a, you know, mom and shop place, right? So of course it's different. People are willing to pay the premium because they expect something different, right? So
and we delivered.
Yeah, and they delivered. When going back to Michael Kilmartin, when you get the 10 record and he sent it to different radio stations to play your music, he ever thought that it will, you know, that will become that popular? I mean, he noticed he was in a position to promote your music, and the quality of the record were there, and there, you know, was people on the radio began playing your music. Have you ever anticipated, or you at the time, that you will be, you know, we're going to something big, and then company will become what it has become? And
well, first of all, I never envisioned anything like what Windham Hill became. That said, almost instantaneously after Michael went to, I mean, he knew the FM stations and he knew the music directors of every one of those stations. He didn't send it just to every station. I mean, I can remember Kazam in Seattle, Kink in Portland, you know, KFAT and Gilroy, CAS and Cambridge, you know, WXPN and Chicago. I mean, I remember those stations in the early days, right? They were so important. But he was targeting very, very carefully. He knew the music directors in all of these stations. And he hit 100%. There wasn't a single failure of those records going out and you know, not being played. They were, I mean, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think 8 out of the 10 were listing it as heavy airplay. So, and that was getting into Billboard. And there was a trade paper called The Walrus, which was kind of independent and you know, sort of a little bit of anarchy in the FM station world. But all those stations, he knew where they were. He knew the music directors. And when he saw that they were playing, he said, you need to get on the phone and thank these people. And I did that. And every one of those wanted to do an interview with me. And most of the stations said, listen, get up here and let's do a concert. We'll promote the hell out of it. Here, okay, look, I've never made a penny in playing a concert in my life, okay? And I call Kazam Radio in Seattle, which is going crazy, absolutely nuts. I mean, it literally went to #1. I mean, a guitar record going #1 in a commercial FM station, you know, crazy. So I call up, and I'm supposed to talk to John Kurtzer. And I say, John, no, John's not here today, but I'm Jeff Hyman. I'm the assistant music director. I said, well, I'm Will Ackerman. He said, who are you? There's a picture of a little girl on the record, and this record is going completely crazy. What are you doing on Saturday? And I said, well, what do you, no, I don't know. He said, well, let's do a concert. I say, fine, okay, great. I'd love to do a concert. I have never really played a concert, but sure, okay. And so he said, okay, well, next Saturday, come drive. He said, well, are you flying, driving? I said, I can't afford flying. I'll drive up from San Francisco. You know, it's a haul, but it's not impossible. So I drive up to the station. It's a Saturday. And I get to the station and Jeff is frantic. He's like, you know, you're late. And I'm late for what? And he said, listen, follow me, just follow me. And so I'm driving my car, you know, behind him, and we're turning, and then we park, and he parks, I park. He said, grab your guitar, go. And I walk in his, you know, back door of something or other, and he pushes me out, and I understand that I've never had a paying concert in my life. I am now on stage at the Seattle Opera House, which is 2,300 people
waiting for you.
That's my first paying gig.
My God, man.
You know, I mean, and that's what it was. It just went on like that. But that was, I mean, think about that.
I can know that.
The first paying gig I had in my life was the sold out Seattle Opera House, you know? Yeah. And my cousin, Alex DeGrassi, who was pounding nails with me, I had a company called Windham Hill Builders. We were general contractors. I was building houses.
Yep.
And so I as a joke, I went into a standard tuning, and I took a piece of paper, went between the strings, and I started playing Mrs. Brown, You Got a Lovely Daughter. And, you know, I get a laugh. And I said, look, folks, I don't know any more music, or I could just play it all again. And they go, yeah, dude, play it again. You know, I said, look, I got a cousin over here, Alex DeGrassi. He plays better than I do. And so if you want some more music, his name is Alex. And so 2,300 people are going, Alex, Alex. They have no idea who he is, right? But Alex, you know, grabs his guitar and goes out and plays, and he, you know, children's dance, and, you know, just killed them. And he said, maybe I should do a record too. You know, that's it. And, you know, and then playing a concert in Santa Monica at Kate McCabe's guitar shop. And there's this kind of oddball guy who comes up and talks to me afterward. I guess we traded a couple of phone calls or something. And it was George Winston. And, you know, he invited me, he said, you know, you can crash at my place if you want. I had a sleeping bag and I rolled out on the couch and he said, do you mind if I play the piano a little bit while you're going to sleep? I said, no. And so I hear him playing what ends up being pretty much George Winston's first album. There you go. Yeah, George Winston Autumn. And in the morning I said, George, what the hell was that I was listening to last night? And he said, just some of my stuff. And he had played me some guitar music too. And he really wanted to do a guitar record. And I said, George, I'll tell you what, I promise you we can do a guitar record, but you got to trust me. I really, really, really want to go with this piano thing here. And obviously I was right about that one.
And did that probably, I think I read somewhere that album changed your life, and his life as well. I mean, all of a sudden with George Winston, the stuff multiplied by factor of 10, I think, you know, if you were popular at the time, you guys became, you know, 10 times bigger and a superstar, you know.
Yeah, if not considerably more than 10. I mean, it was the first time we could conceive of hundreds of thousands of records and ultimately millions of records. But with those sales, of course, came a far bigger audience that then could support you know, the Liz Storys and the Alex DeGrassis and the Michael Hedges, and you know, then you can, it's not just George Winston that's going gold or platinum. You know, it's the other artists as well. Not everyone, of course, but the label was very active. George certainly led the way for us, and I will forever be grateful for that. But the label itself did very, very nicely, well, in addition to Winston. Yeah,
and at the time, well, now you are, you know, you're becoming very popular and you're doing money and you're doing well. But was any pressure from your dad? Hey, son, you know, if you want to take a year off to music, that's okay. But I encourage you to finish the class that you have left and go back to school, get your bachelor's degree, get a job in construction and or whatever, or you kind of dad trusted you and say, well, you know what you're doing very well. Probably you were getting paid more money than your own dad, and you know, and say, well, you know, don't, you can always have a plan B, or that was.
Well, I think one of the English is a Germanic language.
Yep.
And my father being an Old English philologist, for some reason, the fact that my first tour, actual guitar tour, was in Germany. Fred Christmann and his Pastels label, Alex and I toured in Germany, and somehow or other that convinced him that this was for real. I mean, but that was actually even before Winston came on. But you know, we were touring in Germany, and somehow my dad was like, "Oh, you were touring in Germany. Everything's fine." I've just been slightly haunted lately because I remembered the fact that the day I went to see my father in the hospital, he was going to have surgery. And I brought him the cover of George Winston's Autumn. We didn't have the record yet, but I wanted to show him what we were doing. And I remember he looked at this and he said more to himself than to me. He said, "You've done this all yourself." And there was a question mark there. It was sort of, and he, at some point he'd said to me, "I never made a decision in my life." I mean, he was the good boy. He went to school, he, you know, got degrees, he became a teacher, he did everything the way you were supposed to do it. And he and I had talked well into a couple of nights, talking about how he wished he had taken some chances. He said, I think literally, I never took a chance in my life. And he was very proud. Having left Stanford University with only 2 quarters to go was arguably suicidal. I mean, now the #1 university in America, Stanford University is was then a very powerful school. But to walk away from a degree from Stanford with 2 quarters, but I didn't want to be trapped, you know, and I could go back if I needed to. But after my mother's suicide, after my mother's death, the impending death of the Virgin Spirit, that being about her suicide, I had only known academia, and I just needed to see the rest of the world. I mean, because I'd only seen colleges, and my father's remarrying the woman who was head of Smith and Radcliffe. I mean, that's all I'd known, and I just had to see the world. I had to see other options in this life, and he was very kind and very understanding, but being at his bedside, showing him the George Winston cover, and then he died the next day in surgery. But I got to see him. He got to know me. He got to respect me, not as an academic, but as somebody who had. And the notion that you could start your own record label didn't really occur to me either. But to him, it just seemed like magic, because it comes from Capitol Records, it comes from Warner Brothers. It's so he was just blown out. He just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I'm very happy for you. Like I told you before, we began the recording. For my life here had been a miracle too. For my dad, that was happy that I finished high school, and probably I would never be able to do anything meaningful in life. And now I done okay in my life. It was a beautiful thing. It's some people are bloom differently, I think. It's not a scissor that you need to cut mold everybody the same. People are moving different frequencies, and they have certain goals, different goals with the parents, and some kids are ready when they're 17, 18 to move into life. Other kids don't, and I say with my own son as well, and following the same path that I do. But academia is not important. I want to do something else. And people need to, parents out there need to, embrace the kids, and it's taking chances is great. Don't be stupid. Don't always have a plan B, if you will. But
yeah, you
need to take risks in life. Otherwise, you're not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, you won't find yourself.
That's right. You don't want to be 80, like I told you before. Man, why didn't marry that lady? That was the love of my life, or that career, or that path, or that business, whatever it is that takes inside yourself. And so you began. So the record began growing, and you start selling a lot of record, making good money. You needed to form like a corporation, right? So there were a factory, an accounting, and a payroll. So it's not just music. You need to run a business, right?
Yeah, my first wife, I've gone through 2 and got it right on 3. How can you get married at age 22 and hope to have any, you don't know yourself, let alone anybody else? But Ann Robinson was my first wife, and she was the one who was in charge of the money. And she was brilliant. I mean, we had growth years. I mean, a standard growth year was like 480%, but 700%, 2,300%. She managed to run Windham Hill without going into debt once. Brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. I mean, I don't know that Windham Hill could have become Windham Hill were it not for her absolute genius in terms of managing money. She made one mistake where we had done all of the music for Apple computers in the early days. I mean, Steve Jobs was just down the road, and so when you turned on an Apple computer, the music was Windham Hill music. And so we had a connection with that, and Apple was sending out CDs, as some sort of a benefit, or some sort of additional price point thing. And Steve owed us, I can't remember how much it was. It was a fair amount. In those days, $14,000 was a lot of money. And Steve came in to have a meeting with Ann, and he suggested that he could give us stock instead of the payment for the $14,000, and she said no because she was too conservative. I've done the math on that. We could have bought the state of Oregon with the money that we would have made off of the early stock in Apple, but we survived pretty well. But I mean, who knows? Maybe a few $100 million wouldn't have fucked me up. But I'm wondering if it wasn't the best thing, perhaps, just to be in kind of a real world.
Gotcha. And in your head, right? You were a kind of musician, I don't know, a businessman, and are two different things in life, right? So what's a point in your life? Well, we say, well, I really like music. I don't like the process. I want to play the piano, play the guitar, hire all this great musician to play in a record label, but I don't want to deal with accounting or finance, or it's not my thing, right? So because are two different things. People, like music, right? But they don't know, they don't want to spend the time, running a corporation. The time we didn't have computer, we didn't have cell phone, but it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of stuff non-music related that you need to do in order to survive in that music. And it's a lot of BS and politics and, so.
I have to give Anne all the credit in the world for how she handled the growth. I don't know how she did it. It was a magic trick, many magic tricks, but somehow or other she managed to somehow absorb growth years of 2,200%. A slow year early on was 500-600%. And somehow she did that without borrowing money. I have no idea how.
Yeah, my God, man. How big was your big payroll? There were 20 people working, 100 people working, I don't know.
No, I think we topped out around 46 people. I mean, when we made the deal with A&M Records, that then suddenly we were within A&M, so that there's a lot of growth that didn't have to happen for us. And Gil Friesen treated me very, very well. I remember, many meetings with Gil in the old Charlie Chaplin lot, which is where, in Hollywood, where A&M Records was located then. And I'd be in another meeting with Gil and, Herb Alpert, the A of A&M, and Jerry Moss being, the top businessman, that's A&M. But Gil was the day-to-day guy. He was the president of A&M. And I would meet with him and I'd go on for hours and hours and hours. I need control of this. I need control of that. I will not let go of control of this. Blah, blah, blah. And at some point, Gil stood up and literally, knocked the chair off over, and he came right up in my face and he said, "Will, listen, we don't know what you're doing. We can't tell you what to do because we don't get it. So just shut the fuck up and just do what you do. That's what we want." I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll sign." And it worked. It was great. They were wonderful partners. And Gil was good to his word. I think the fact that, A&M, was also a artist-owned record label. I think that the fact that, Herb Alpert was, that was the A of A&M, and they'd been through all that, right? So they actually understood. So the fact that we were talking to A&M was more perfect than it could have been by going. I mean, Warner's and Geffen offered me deals too. So I could have gone one of three ways, but by that time, I really sensed that these guys, probably because of dealing with Herb, would understand how close to my heart this stuff would be and how it had to be respected. And I was convinced that they would respect it, and they did, in fact. I mean, there was nothing they did that pissed me off. We were respected, and we were partners, and it worked.
I got you. And then some year later, you end up being awarded 27 gold and platinum record in the U.S. and overseas. My God, man.
Yeah, I know. And Japan, I mean, Japan per capita was by far the biggest market for us in the world. I just had a great honor of having Princess Takamado having me to go play at the, I think it's the 60th incarnation of the Narakasuga Shrine. It's a long story and we don't have time for it, I don't suppose, but it was arguably one of the great honors of my entire life to be part of that huge tradition in Japan. But I played for Hirohito before he died. I played for Akihito the night he took the throne, and played often for Prince and Princess Takamado.
Now that you mentioned Japan, have you ever met Ryuichi Sakamoto? You have met him?
No.
You're there in Japan.
My guy, the guy I wanted to meet was Shinzo Maeda, the photographer, sort of the Ansel Adams in a way, although he worked pretty much in all color. I was just talking yesterday, as a matter of fact, about a birthday party that Shinzo had, and literally all of the major people in all of the arts were flown from Tokyo or Osaka to come up to the northern island of Hokkaido, where Shinzo lived. And it was this surprise party that his son Akira put together. And I was the only performer there. I played a set for Shinzo.
Wow.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful man. I got to just tramp around with him when he was with a camera and getting to see the world through his eyes. I don't know that I would speak a word all day. I would just watch him. And, when he finally, and of course he's talking about cameras with all tilts and swings, so none of this 35 millimeter stuff. But, I would see him set this up and, looking at the light where it's coming from. And then, I'm getting chills right now through my entire body, because he would say, okay, now look through this, and I swear to God, I am just getting chills. But I loved Shinzo, and he, to be the guy who got to play at his, this big birthday party. Yeah, Japan got us in a big way. I wish I had time to tell you the story and the meaning of my playing at the Narakasuga Shrine. It's a long story. Maybe I can tell you someday. But it was arguably the greatest honor of my life. Yes, my first time playing at Carnegie Hall or the Montreux Jazz Festival or whatever. But really, when all is said and done, I think the greatest honor of my life was being able to play for Shinzo's birthday.
Yeah, I got you, man. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful experience, I imagine. And eventually you end up kind of deciding, what was the main motivation of selling the record label for, and you say, well, I don't want to stay in California, I want to move to Vermont. Why Vermont, and then why selling the business?
Well, I'm in Windham County, Vermont, and that was part of it. My mother committed suicide when I was 12. My father remarried altogether too soon, as far as I was concerned. And I think that the new mother really didn't want much to do with a teenage son. I don't blame anybody. Everybody does their best they can. I ended up going to school, in a prep school. When I say prep school, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
It's high school except private. And I went there for a number of reasons. One, they had a new swimming pool, and it cost a lot of money, and they wanted to make a very strong swimming team for 3 years. And they got one butterfly, one back, one breast, one free. And I was a breaststroker. And so I went, to be swim for this school, and we kicked shit. I mean, we won pretty much everything for a few years. It was a lot of fun. Sort of getting around to Windham Hill, I was dating a girl named Kate, who I saw fairly recently. She was here a couple of years ago and visited. But she said to me at some point, and understand that we're talking about two 16-year-olds. She said, "I think I know where we can get a room for the weekend." Now that is music to a boy's ear.
Of course.
And so somehow or other, we got fake passes to meet in Brattleboro, just down the road from here. And then hitchhiked up the West River Road. And the West River Road is just in front. I mean, I can't see it because I live on a lot of land, and it's, but it's right down in the valley. That's the West River Road. And we hitchhiked up there and went up, and we walked into Windham Hill Farm.
Wow.
And we walked in, and Hugh, who runs the joint, said, "Okay, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Well, me and my boyfriend thought maybe we could come up for the weekend." She hadn't even called them. And he said, "Oh, great. Well, you can wait on tables, and he's talking to me, you're on the dishwasher. So, and some of these things you got to do, 3 of the same plate has to be used 3 times. So you got to be really fast on the dishwasher." But he said, then the magic words, and I'm getting chills again. He said, "Oh, Kate, why don't you two stay in the north room?" And I'm going, we just got a room together. We're 16. I like this place a lot,
Cool.
And so Hugh and Mary had adopted 3 kids. And in some respects, though I had already been adopted by the Ackerman family, in a way, I was the 4th adopted kid. Hugh meant everything to me, Hugh and Mary. And that place became a home. It became a home of heart. My father had remarried. I was 3rd wheel. So this became my home. So everything that ever mattered to me was called Windham Hill. Somebody recently, somewhere on this messy desk of mine, I wish I could find it right now, there's a business card from mid-1970s, which says Windham Hill Builders, as I was still building houses, records, music, BMI. How many business cards have a general contractor company as well as a record label? I think that's probably the first one. But that's the story of where the name came from. But I was kind of a lost boy, and I needed a home, and Hugh and Mary in many respects gave that to me. And so everything that ever mattered to me was called Windham Hill after that. But you can still just drive up the road here and go to Windham Hill Inn. It's now a Relais and Chateau hotel, so it's a very, very expensive joint. But I run up there. Susan and I have dinner up there. Of course, it's not the same. It's not all the same lovely people that I knew in those days, but I like to connect with it once a year, just to be in there and be thinking, and, go past the living room where we recorded Michael Hedges' Aerial Boundaries. He was just sitting in the living room, and we were recording in a mobile truck out front. So, there's a lot of memories there.
Watch. And then, as I said, the other part of the question, why selling the record label at the time? Why you didn't want to stay?
Well, it was a corporation.
This decision more than.
Well, it was a corporation. I like a little business, but I lost track. Did we have 50, 60 employees around the world? I don't know. In these big convention meetings we would have 3 times a year, and it's not me. I just don't. And so I kind of bailed, and then Ann and the rest of it, sold it, and Sony, and I was just done. I love little business, but I don't love corporations.
Yeah, and then you end up moving there, and I think you build your imaginary road studios, right? That's that correct?
Yep.
So you got paid well, and you put that together, and you begin working with your co-producer Tom Eaton as well, right? So
Tom is a wonderful gift of my life. I think I probably would have retired by now had it not been for Tom. He is the most talented engineer I've ever worked with, and he's a very patient man. And he and I've worked together for so long that all we have to do is make a noise, and we know what that means. But we're a wonderful team, and he has continued to making music fun, and there's no reason to suffer, at this point. I don't need to. But if it's fun, if it's, you're working with good people and wonderful musicians. Have you ever seen the list of our session players?
No, I have not. Yeah, it's on the website. I can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have it right here or not, but I mean, our list of session players is absolutely insane. I mean, Tony Levin and
yeah. I'm going to be seeing Tony actually in a couple of weeks in New York. So.
Yeah, but I mean, people of that, at
that level, yeah.
And they work for us for really so much less than they command in New York or LA. I can say honestly that they respect what we do. They know that it'll be tremendously professional. They know that when I bring them in, I know where the entrances and exits are. There's no wondering. It's like boom, 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 boom. You're out of here. Here's a bunch of money. Go away. But Tom and I are a real great team, and we're very, very efficient. And I have done my homework by the time somebody like Tony turns up. And Prameek Russell Tubbs, who, I mean, he's been all over, but I feel honored it just touches me that people of that quality. I'm always still kind of a kid. Maybe we all are, but it's like, oh wow, Tony Levin's working with us, and then obviously he admires us and respects us as well. Yeah. But there's something so wonderful about these players that we have who just love working for us because they know we're pros. I have done my homework. I know exactly what I want, and I know where they go in. I know where they get out. And they come in, knock out the stuff, and we're just so lucky. But it's luck, and it isn't. I mean, we've earned it, and their respect means everything to me. But Tom, I think I would have quit maybe a long time ago if it hadn't been for the friendship and the partnership of Tom Eaton. I mean, for me, for the first time in my life, to turn over the production the producer role to somebody else. I've always been my own producer. And what was so cool is that I got to see what it was like for what I do for other people. In other words, they choose to trust me. If I tell them they have to do it differently, if they have to do it quieter, if they have to move to an A note instead of a G they're there. It's not that I'm dictatorial. I'm not beating them up, but they trust. The same thing is true for me and Tom. In other words, for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't my own producer, and I got to be a pure musician in making Positano songs. So it was the first experience I had with what it is for other people to work with me. And it was really revelatory. It was just such a gas. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, you can just be a musician. Huh, that's pretty great.
Wow. So you kind of summarized my next question. So what's the motivation, right? You get a point, well, that all the Grammy Award, you have done well financially, you don't have to go to a studio and wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and answer an email or a phone call. What's the motivation behind you to keep going why not retire and say, well, I'm done with music. I want to enjoy,
No,
my life, travel to Europe, do this, do that, whatever.
that's just love. It's love of music. I only work with people I like and admire. If there's some new client, there's a long period of time that I'm trying to figure out who they are as people as well as musicians. And I'm after some 70 years of honing a talent to be able to guess or to get some sense of who a person is. I can say with absolute sincerity that I haven't been wrong about any of that for decades. If the feeling is right with somebody, it works, and it's just plain fun. I don't know that I could work the same hours that I used to, but I mean, week after week after week, I am definitely spacing things these days, but come on, what a great gig. You get to help people make their dreams come true, really. And the fact that we have people coming back for, Catherine Kay is coming in. I was just on the phone with her. She's coming in for her 9th record with us. And her husband actually is one of my closest friends now in the world, Jim. And it is it's a family business in a way. And even the session players, Prameek Russell Tubbs and Steve Hawley, and these are mega guys who have played with monsters, and they're all the sweetest people you'll ever meet in your life. Not a trace of ego. No, Tony, I need you to hang on that A, and then it fall on the G right behind the note, not on the note. And that would drive anybody else fucking nuts. And, but Tony's learned to trust us. And, most of the time they're free to, go with, but sometimes I want, but they trust us. And earning that trust of people of that caliber is one of the great honors of my life. You almost can't believe that you are worthy of it, but apparently you are.
And I mind that you need to turn some people down, right? So a good musician with a conflicted personality, if you will, it wouldn't work out. Versus, well, I like this guy a lot. He's not up there musically, but my studio can help him out to, put the record to the next stage, right? So I suppose that you need to deal with that, conflicted people or crazy people or rude people, and you say, no, I don't want to work with you.
By the time they walk into the studio,
You can tell, right? No,
I have, in most cases, I've had a chance to meet them. I like to have them. I always tell them that I want them to come to the studio and see if they're comfortable, which means I want to see who the hell they are.
Yeah, sure.
Have a couple of dinners with them, see what I think. And, my instincts are very, very good after all these years. I'm very, very, as a matter of fact, I can't remember how many decades, I don't know, but I've never been surprised. I've always found that my instincts are very good with who these people are. So I can honestly say it is a joy. It's work, no question, especially for a guy, who isn't sleeping at all well. But, I suck it up and do the best I can. Just one of those, for me at any rate, one of the downsides of age has been, the compromise of sleep. But I can always rally for sessions. There are other things I might not be able to do, but I so love what I'm doing that I can be dead tired and walk in. And Tom just says, there's absolutely no difference. You're 100%. And because it's just like you're feeding me, the best drugs in the world. I'm doing what I love to do with people I love. And, you can find energy. If you're doing what you love, there's no bounds to energy, it's
I know exactly what you mean. Yes.
It's infinite. To a certain extent, but I can go a week without having had sleep and still be enthralled and happy and having a great time. So sleep is a real issue at this point in my life, and I resent it, but I can always pull it together and totally enjoy doing what I do. I mean, I am so lucky. I mean, I get to do exactly what I want. And I know that sounds kind of like being spoiled. It's not as if I didn't earn it though. And it's not as if I didn't, that I don't bring, you know, a talent and a number of talents, hopefully. I love the first day of recording to watch the artist understand what it feels like to be free to just go deeply into their music and let me worry about, you know, this one little mistake or that one. We'll fix that. We'll fix that. Their job is to connect with their heart and to give every bit of the human spirit to their music, and all the rest of it will work out. But having their trust, to get the best of me and Tom, they have to trust us, and to an incredible degree. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, that was the best take," and I'll say, "No, take 2, except for the very end, which was really good on take 4." And Tom and I have this, I wish I had a piece of paper here. We have an utterly unique, all these session players who've seen everybody in the world working, they say they've never seen anything like this. Basically, it's, you know, here's take 1, here's take 2, here's take 3, and it's all divided. It's like, it could be, you know, intro, A2, B, chorus, A4, you know, whatever it is. We map it out, not with music notation, because one, I don't read music, either standard or tablature for guitar. So we break it out. So I am making all my decisions in real time. So the intro on take 1 was great. But the B section, the really good one, was on take 7. So I can look at these columns and say to Tom, we're done. And I hand him what's called the master map, which is, you know, 1 1 1 3 3 7 7 4 3 3 1 1 1. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
So and you know, the players, the monster players, they say they've never seen this method. But to me, it just got so irritating that every other studio in the world, you sit there and you record it, and then you go and waste time listening to it again. I trust myself and ultimately win the trust of the musicians themselves. Because I mean, here, boom, and I give it to Tom. He's the best editing guy in the world. We have the piece done because we know the instant we're done. We're not like, well, let's go back and spend 4 hours listening to 4 hours of recording. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've always been instinctual, and really, you know, musicians say, yeah, you're right. That was the right take. And they might say, I really thought that I was really good on take 3, and we'll go listen. And no, you're right. It was better on 4. So it's kind of cool, right? I mean, real time decision making. It saves energy. It saves money. It's not drudgery. It's fun. It's you know, you look, your job is not to think, just here, do a lobotomy, take the front out of this, just, it's all heart. You play fingers and heart, give me that, and I'll deal with the rest of it. And so there being, not having to be objective about it, that's my job. But it's a beautiful system, and everybody comes to love it. And I know that the session players are like, you know, I've never seen this in my life. You know, Tony is just like, you know, this is why isn't everybody doing this? This is the most brilliant.
That's right. That's what
yeah. But
it might be hard for some people to trust you. I mean, you kind of, well, now you're well known and you know exactly what you're doing, but I don't know, if I were a musician, I will, who the heck is this guy to tell me that,
right,
you know, take 3 or take 4, or, well, I like the intro, take 5, and let's glue it together. that's a masterpiece, not the way you think you are done.
All we got to do,
We
got to do is, they'll say, no, but no, the intro on take 4 was great. And I said, no, you blew it on the third phrase, blah, blah, blah. But here's 4, because, Tom will be there in 3 seconds. Here, boom. And he said, oh, yeah, oh, okay, all right. And so there might be 2 or 3 of those little things that happen at the beginning of the session, because they came here because they respect us and they trust us, but still, and finally they get it. It's like, I say, look, don't clutter your mind with this shit. Your job is fingers and heart. Okay.
Do the rest, right?
And we're you're the circus. You're up there on the trapezes. You're flipping around there. I'm the net down there. And so sometimes you have to show them that their trust in you is safe. And when I kind of like it when somebody says, no, it was my intro on 2 was really, really good. I said, well, okay, see what you think. And here's what I like. And they go, oh, okay. And there might be 2 or 3 of those. And then finally they're like, well, fuck it. I guess he knows what he's doing. But it's a unique system. I mean, none of these session players have ever seen this system, but it's so wonderful that we can do this in real time and not bore ourselves and spend more money for people. We're not cheap here, but we're efficient as hell. And again, when Tony Levin and Steve Hawley and, Prameek Russell Tubbs haven't seen this system anywhere else, I think we're pretty unique in it.
Should patent, that's it.
Yeah, right. I wish I could, yeah.
Have some loyalties, man. Can you have more time, or how we doing?
Yeah, I'm having fun.
Let me put my battery. Give me 1 second, and so I can recharge my computer.
There you are.
Yeah, we're good. Kind of something occurred to me. It's a personal question. You're not obligated to answer that. Have you ever tried to find who were your biological parents, or it's important? I don't know. Is it?
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. I did. I hired a woman whose job it is to connect that. It ends up being that this rather rich girl got knocked up by a plumber, and I did talk to my dad before he passed away, and he was just salt of the earth. He was, I think I'm your son. Oh, great. It's like no drama, no nothing. And he said, who was the mom? And I gave him, her name. Oh, he said, oh yeah, she was a rich girl. He was a plumber, so a tradesman. And he knocked her up somewhere along the line. And so they did, the girl's parents did what they did in those days. They shipped her from South Carolina to go to Palo Alto, California, theoretically to go to Stanford University, which was bullshit. But they sent her out to Palo Alto to have the baby and then come back, telling everybody that she was in college at Stanford for a year. So that was me. My dad, I got in touch with him. I think he was in his early 90s. And he was a plumber, he worked with pipes, and, I thought there might be a little bit of drama with him, and he's like, oh, great. You're my son. Oh yeah. Great. Tell me about it. And I said, well, it's this woman. Oh, so yeah, I remember her. She had a baby, huh? And it was really fun. Now, my mom came from a very conservative Republican party. I'm sure they're big Trump supporters. She wanted nothing to do with it, and to be honest with you, I was okay with it. It didn't break my heart, but I liked that I got to talk to this tradesman plumber guy, and I said, hey, look, I was a house builder, that's what I did, and I love the building trades. And it is true. I mean, I was a very good house builder, and all these structures at the house here are all structures that I built myself.
I don't know how the world works, but maybe your life would have been different growing up in a different family or not, but
Yeah.
your parents are your parents. I mean, they did all the work, right? So, but it's a human being. It's a curiosity to see, what happened there, why they give up on me or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
not here to judge anything. Just was a.
Yeah. Well, and then being adopted by the Ackerman family, life, right? There's yin and yang, and there's good and bad. Looking back, it would appear that my mother, I was adopted by the Ackerman family. And I think my job, I was hired as a baby to cheer up a manic depressive woman. I think her psychiatrist, Dr. Rose, had suggested that would be the solution. Is she couldn't have a baby, but get her a baby. So essentially, my job was to cheer up a manic depressive woman, which didn't work because ultimately I found her hanging in the shower when I was 12. That is the impending death of the Virgin Spirit. That is the night before I found my mother hanging in the shower. And my father remarried, and I was basically, kicked out of the house because I hadn't done my job, and went to school out in this part of the world, which once again did result in my meeting Hugh and Windham Hill Farm and finding in some respects a home that I'd never really had. I mean, yes, I lived somewhere, but I don't know that I was, I can't blame my mother. She was a manic depressive. She was not well. But look, I've had a lot of therapy over the years. You can't be a kid and find your mother in the shower hanging and not need some help. And in many respects, things got worse after that. And it gets pretty damn dark. But I've had many years of therapy. And I think natively, I think my music is kind of dark, sad, right? I mean, the impending death of the Virgin Spirit, that is about the night before I found my mother hanging in the shower. I mean, that was the end of innocence.
That's right.
That is what the impending death of the Virgin Spirit is about. That is where my life changed completely. And innocence was lost. Home was lost, belonging was lost. My father remarried way too quickly for me, and I was sent away to school here in this part of the world, 3,300 miles away from the home that I'd known. It was it hasn't been all a joyride by any means. But I mean, who's going to escape this life without tragedy? That we all, to varying degrees, we all suffer tragedy.
Sure, absolutely. Are you a religious person at all? Whatever that means to you.
I don't know. I refuse to move into belief if it is brought about because of fear or need. If I find my way to belief, do you see what I'm saying? I don't want to go into a religion if I am trying to patch my life, but I'm open to almost anything. I don't believe in an afterlife. God, what the hell is God? But I mean, look, what is an infinite universe? Where does a universe come from? Seeing these, the new telescopes that are going out and seeing, the birth of solar systems and galaxies. I mean, look, you can't be anything but absolutely speechless when you look at where we are and what is this mystery. I mean, it comes from nowhere. Where does everything come from nowhere? I don't know. It's bigger than I am. But that the magnitude of that and really what we're seeing from these photographs and the rest of it, it's like, come on, this is big. This is not just physically big, but it is big and it's meaningful. So I don't think our puny human brains can conceive of anything that could create this. I think we can feel wonder. I think we all want to feel belonging. But this didn't come from nowhere. You know, it did physically, but what do you think?
I think, so I told you that I grew up in a Catholic family, right? So, and the Catholic Church and the Jesuit put a lot of things in my head, right? Growing up, and then eventually I start thinking on my own, and I say, well, let me think what science have discovered, right? Because my mom was a very religious person. She believed everything that the Catholic Church told me, and then I'm an engineer, so I need to think about stuff. And I began, well, maybe the world is not the way that the Catholic Church was telling me. So, and I began doing a lot of research and reading. I have a bunch of college degrees, so I think I'm moderately intelligent, and I began looking, took my Catholic Church hat off and see, well, let's see what the science. And there is a lot of research in reincarnation. People, like, for example, University of Virginia have done a lot of work that you can look at the math and statistic, and it cannot be an accident. It's not, they gotta be somewhere, right? A lot of people do past life regression, and then, you know, see the people do lucid dreams, and they do research in the area, and there's a lot out there. In other words, I don't think I don't think this is the end. I think we are a energy having a human experience, if you will. I think we come to this world to do a specific thing, and then we move on. There is very important people. I can send you the links of the people that I'm talking about, and you can design your own, you know. But there's two people in particular. Michael Newton is one that did a lot of regression, and then previous life regressions. And this, as a statistician, right? You know what's called the p-value. It cannot be an accident. It is there. People, he and other fellow end up not proven mathematically, but we end up at the moment of birth, we end up picking our parents. I would say that I would like to believe that that's the case. That we came here to this life to do something very specific, and at the moment of birth, we are given like 5 options. You know, born in this family, born in that family, born in that family, and you, I don't know, with an energy or whatever, you end up picking your life. So, so all the stuff created conflict in my life because, well, I grew up in a Catholic family, and reincarnation didn't exist. We die when, you know, we pass away, and there's so much research that that's not the case. In the research that I read, you know, when you cross over, there is no the concept of heaven or hell. That doesn't exist. That's a myth that the Catholic Church put in my head. Yeah. You know, when we cross over, we go to an examination when we meet our masters, and then for master they review our life, and so on and so forth. So somebody can say, well, that is only in America, and it's only for certain people, and, you know, for this income per capita or that status or college educated people or not. And so they have done a lot of studies, and you know, they look at a lot of families over years in many cultures, in many different continents with different speakers for different languages, and it's the same. So therefore, it cannot be an accident. It's not an American thing. It does exist. So simple put, I would say that you know, we don't die. The word die doesn't mean anything to me. We came here to do a specific thing, and then we move it to the next life to learn that, and so on and so forth. That's best way I can describe it. You know, what I take from the Catholic Church, yeah, you know, you and I were born in good families, and we both have done well, and we need to help people out and try to do the right thing in life. Don't take, you know, try to do the right thing, but that's independent of any religion, right? So as a human being, right, living here, I try to do the right thing, right? I try to be polite. I try to help people out. I have done well, like you, financially, so I help in my community or this or that, but I don't think the Catholic Church, my upbringing was wrong. I really believe that we don't die. I have done regression, and it's very, very interesting, and with very bright people with a lot of data telling you something. You need to open your eyes and look at this stuff, right?
Yeah, I've been talking to other people who've done that. I'm certainly at the very least intrigued. So I think it's something I will probably do.
And then you start looking. I will send you some videos after this, and man, this guy cannot be wrong. I mean, it's a lot of data there, and as I say, a lot of prestigious universities doing religion studies or this or that, or psychology research. There is something out there, you know. So maybe God is, of course, there gotta be a creator. With the Hubble telescope, is unbelievable. You know, you're baffled how ignorant, how little we are seeing the stuff, right? Yeah, maybe like a God kind of, as I say, an energy, or you know, I don't know. I don't maybe know a he or she. There is another center.
I think it's whatever it is. It's bigger than.
Oh, absolutely, right.
Than anything we can try to conceive. I think the only thing I can come to is what I see tangibly in the world, what has been made, and how there are times we are so moved by the truth. I agree. I haven't been able to decide what it is yet, but it's certainly bigger than we are. Certainly.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
I mean,
you know, the best way I can describe it is that I'm wearing my glasses, and then I took my glasses off and I saw the reality. The reality is a lot more complex that we have imagined, right? So there is a center here in Virginia, like 2 hours from the house, that's called the Monroe Institute. I can send you the link.
What is it called?
Monroe Institute, from John Monroe. I will send you the link, don't worry.
Okay.
And they have done a lot of research in all the areas that I'm telling you that, and again, and again, it's not what the Catholic Church told me or this or that. It's so much research and data that have put together that it's I think life is what I'm just telling you. And the best person who could explain that is Michael Newton. I will send you the link. It's a YouTube video. He explains that. So I believe in that. So, you know, we came here to do a specific thing and to learn about this and that, but you know, we are bigger than life. We don't die. The word die doesn't exist. Heaven and hell in my book doesn't exist. You know?
I think our puny minds are not even capable of being able to really envision, you know, what that might be. You know, we keep coming up with, you know, little pictures of this mystery, you know, this huge, beautiful mystery. I don't think, from what I can tell at age 73 nearly, I don't think I will be able to find a religion, for instance, that makes sense to me. I think that our puny minds are only able to comprehend, the tiniest bit. I think that there have been experiences in feeling which lead us to at least some understanding of the magnitude of whatever this is. It's a great mystery, and I think it's going to remain a mystery. But I think that we can feel in a moment of deep truth, and love and beauty. That's as far as I can get. To me, surfing is religion. I mean, for me, in the days where I was, on 40-foot waves, the energy of the earth, the energy of the wave coming to the shore and being on that's huge. For me, mountain climbing is the same thing.
Yeah.
Nature has always been where I have found the only real peace that I know. My wife and my dog give me some of that, but really when it comes down to it, it's nature. And I know that power it's not an accident.
Absolutely, man. Do you try to help people out? A musician that would like, let's say, put a record together and they don't have the funds to pay your hourly rate or whatever. What do you try to do things for other people? And say you have done well financially, and
Yeah.
For me, religion is help people out. I mean, you reach to a point, or I don't know, like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. You have 10 houses, 10 cars, or whatever. What's the point? If that's the only thing you do in your life, then that is a terrible life, according to me. It's
it's a little tricky because everybody would like to be able to take advantage of this, but there are people who contact me who I think are just massively talented, and I just hand them the studio. I mean, they have to pay Tom, and sometimes I even pay Tom. But Susan and I agreed early on that we would donate 35% of all income, and now we've raised it to 40% because we're completely set. So 40% of income from whatever sources. I mean, whether it's bonds or stocks or work or royalties or whatever, that goes to various charitable organizations. Whatever we want. There are some that we stay with year after year, but it's what we do. And it's over the years, it's added up to tens of millions of dollars. But if you keep it, the government's going to take it anyway. You might as well put it into something worthwhile.
Absolutely right. So you take a tax benefit, but well, instead of giving to the government, I would prefer to do something meaningful and a charity that means to me, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit to music, and I was listening to your album for 204 called Returning. Man, that's a masterpiece, man. Feel free to. All my questions are open-ended, so feel free to elaborate how the piece, the album came together, what you remember,
Returning, all the pieces, I think, or at least most of them, had been recorded before, but then I had access to, I had some money and I had time, and I wanted to record what I thought were then most of them, Bricklayer's Beautiful Daughter and Pending Death of the Virgin Spirit. I mean, I wanted to get the definitive version of those. There was new music in there as well. And listen, I don't say this about every album that I do. I mean, there are a couple of in between in the last 10 years or 14 years or whatever, there's some nice stuff there, but the one, and I promise I'm not promoting, me already, me better than to think I'm trying to promote something. The Positano Songs record I haven't been that involved in a record for decades. And I knew it was right because it was work, of course, but it was just plain fun. I mean, I was just having a wonderful time. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, having for the first time in my life, being able to turn the production, you know, here, Tom, you are my producer. And that I got for the first time to experience what it is that I do for other people. You know, you can trust me, you know, you can trust me. Go ahead and test me, but you'll find that that was, you know, and so with Tom, and I'm getting chills right now. I'm just like, I could just be a musician. I here, I'll wipe this crap away and just put your heart there. Just put your heart there and let Tom tell you if it worked. And to relinquish that after decades upon decades for the first time in my life and be able to say, I trust you. And again, that's what people give me, you know, yeah, no. And, you know, in the beginning, it's good when you are working with somebody because they'll say, well, I kind of like, you know, take 3 on that. And I'll go, well, let's go listen. No, you're right. And I'm not saying I'm always right, but a lot of time I'm right. But God, it was fun for the first time to experience what it is that I hope I'm giving to other people, you know, by earning their trust and let them go into their hearts and their minds and just make this happen. Don't think, don't objectify, don't worry. Just get yourself centered and give me the heart of this music. That's what I want. And for the first time in my life to be able to go, that's what it feels like. You know, that's, yeah.
That's a beautiful album, man. And like you say before, letting go of the process and feel yourself free. And of course, there is a safety net underneath there.
Yeah.
It's so easy to say, so difficult to do it.
To relinquish.
Yeah. It's easy to say to do it, but in life, in religion, in relationship with a boyfriend, girlfriend, married, or husband, it's you know, I suppose I've been in love with what it's all about, you know, relinquish and then let it go. You know, it's, you know, you're a pianist. Let me do my job. I'm the manager. You just play the piano the best you can. Now, you just let it go. It's a beautiful thing. It's very difficult to do it, I think, you know. It's
and a new client, you always have to earn the trust.
earn the trust, right?
Yeah. And even if they're saying that they trust you, until they relinquish and they can see that we are doing what we're supposed to do, and that my heart, because my, you know, look, I don't care how, I mean, look, I love Michael Hedges and my cousin Alex DeGrassi. I mean, these guys are monsters, right? But they also always had heart. And I really don't give a fuck about, you know, there's a whole generation of young boys who are, you know, whapping the guitar and, you know, thinking it's like, no, Hedges was doing that because he heard something that he needed to create in this way. It's not about gymnastics. It's not about impressing someone. It's what he needed to do to express himself. So, you know, there's been this, you know, this generation of young boys who are, you know, more ego than heart. Anyway, I've learned over all these years how to gain trust. It's so lovely, and for me, it's never been more poignant, because now for the first time in my life, I get to experience what I want these people to experience in working with me. It's like, I don't have to worry. All I have to do is connect to music. And that's what Tom gave me. And God, it was so revelatory. It was just religious. But it's been, boy, you know, there's been, you know, life deals you some tough things. There's no question about it. But what a magnificent ride this is, and just the beauty of this world, and the beauty of many hearts, and the magic of music. You know, to have been able to make music in your life, that's pretty great.
Where do you think music comes from?
No fucking idea.
why is so important? I would think that they,
I honestly don't care.
I don't,
It doesn't bother. I mean, look, I think part of what's so lovely about it is a mystery. I don't want to talk it to death. We're not going to understand it anyway. To me, I mean, all I know is that until I stop using this part of the brain, I can't make music if this thing is working at all.
Yeah.
I mean, get the fuck away from me. Don't objectify this. Just, trust your heart, go there. Maybe it's not giving you anything this time, but it will come again. Just don't think. For me, it's don't ever think. The moment I start thinking, I'm screwed.
I think in many ways, for me at least, music is magic. It takes me places, whether on a Friday or Saturday night, I put my headphone, I drink a beer or a glass of wine. It takes me places. It's magic. I mean, it's I don't know. As human being, music is a beautiful thing. With the crazy world that we live right now, with Russia and Putin and invading Ukraine and destroying, I will keep putting your Windham Hill collection for him to listen to the stuff, and then forget about all the stupid thing he has done and this. It's it can be music, can be healing, positive, and embracing, engaging. So.
I mean, I'm. This sounds terribly cynical, and I apologize for it. I mean, I think humanity is a failed experiment. I mean, not entirely failed. I mean, we have created beauty, but I think the sooner we're off this planet, the better. I mean, let's try something else, because watching us destroy the world, watching us pollute the world, watching us kill each other. I don't have I mean, yes, there are wonderful things that humans have made, but as a biological experiment, I think it's a failure.
Well, Elon Musk may take us to Mars, planet Mars, in the next, I don't know, 10 years.
And then we'll fuck it up on Mars.
We'll destroy the planet. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll find some way. But again, I'm please do not think that I'm missing the beauty of the potential of the human heart and mind, and in the creation of beauty and the rest of it. But in terms of the big picture and the world and life and pollution and anger and violence and power. I don't have a lot of love for mankind. I have love for people, but thank God we have done beautiful things too.
Yeah. The world is a beautiful place, man. I don't know, during the pandemic, right? So I began working from home. I decided to put this race together. I was going so fast in my life. And then I stopped and I thought, man, I'm doing a lot of things that I'm not happy with, but I have to do it because I'm going too fast. I didn't have time to stop. But during the pandemic, I began, smelling the roses and
Good. Yeah.
And thinking about, well, what is meaningful for me? Well, music is very important to me. I don't play any instrument. I don't know how to read music. I listen to music for 3 hours a day for the last 50 years. And I decided to put this, radios together and the channel. Now I'm talking to you, and I'm very grateful, man. Some people, 1 million people here in the United States die out of COVID. We had a crazy president before, and I'm happy to be alive, man. I'm happy that I have found music early in my life, and my dad had a lot of music too. And growing up, I was listening to music, and I'm glad that I was born in this planet. And I try to do the right thing. Yeah, there are crazy people there, but if each of us can bring their little bit, it can be a wonderful place. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy people there, obviously, but
No, but you're right. There's
a lot of beauty. You know, if you go to Sistine Chapel and you
absolutely.
read, you read Shakespeare, or you go. I was recently with my wife in California, and we drove from Los Angeles to all the way to close to San Francisco, and you see the big Sur, and you know it's
Yeah,
a
that was my life, growing up in Palo
beautiful
Alto.
place.
Yeah. Uh, I, when my mother killed herself when I was 12, and as I told you, I saw her in the shower. My father, frankly, was not connected emotionally very much, or he didn't know how to reveal that anyway. And I think I say this without any anger at all. He basically didn't know what the hell to do with me. There was a guy in the English department at Stanford University with my dad named Willard Wyman, who ran. He was subcontracted by the United States Forest Service to do trail building and trail repair in Yosemite. Do you know what Yosemite is?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's much bigger than Yosemite Valley. It's a huge space of land. But the summer after my mother's suicide, I found myself building and repairing trails in Yosemite with Willard Wyman and a group of other young boys. And nothing could have been better for me than finding the power of nature and finding peace in that. I tend to think that my father did it because the guy was in the English department, Willard Wyman, and he'd get rid of me for the summer because he didn't know what the fuck to do with me. But at the same time, it was a very, very healthy thing. I now that I'm old enough, I'd kill to be able to talk to my dad and say, hey, what were you thinking there? What was the idea? But finding the power of nature has been my salvation all along, whether it's hiking or mountain climbing or surfing altogether two big waves. That's where I think I have found a quiet beauty without words. You don't need words. That tells you that you are in contact with something far, far bigger than we are, and nature. And here we are. I mean, I'm 280 acres. We've got 4 acres of organic gardening that we grow on. We raise chickens, ducks, and geese. Where we do eat them, or we trade them. We're farmers. My wife is more of the farmer than I am. I can't do the throat slitting, but she can. She's a pragmatist. But this, I hope someday you could visit.
I would love to.
This is just, it's just magical. I don't know, you probably can't see if I unplug, but
if you invite me to the studio, I will go with my wife and my son.
Okay, you're currently you're invited.
Wow, very nice, man. Beautiful, man. Oh.
So that's
very, very, man, beautiful, man. It's a beautiful day down there in Vermont, man.
Yeah. You can't see another house from here. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty great. I've got you might argue the point, but I'm married to the best woman in the world. It took me three trials, tries. You can't understand what you get married when you're 27. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Yeah. If she's pretty, that's good enough. But this woman I'm married to, Susan, whew, God.
Good for you, man. Guys should never get married for their 30. I think we are not there. We wanna, do stupid stuff and
Yeah.
party and try stuff. We guys in general, males don't get serious until their late 20s. So I would
Yeah,
say,
or if you're stupid like me, it takes longer than that. But I finally got it right. I mean, at that age, it's all hormones, as long as you're getting laid, it's,
yeah, yeah. You mentioned something very important that I remember with my dad too. I didn't have a close relation with my dad. I think both my parents were engineer. They thought that, well, schooling is the only way to make it, blah, blah, right? And I was a rebel and they didn't know what to do with me. And then eventually I did okay in my life. And but man, I will give my music collection to speak 5 minutes with my dad and apologize for all the stupid stuff that I did, man.
well, yeah, I know.
You know, when you are my son just turned 18, finished high school, and he's
For
like me,
how old are you?
60. I just turned 60.
Okay.
And I married a beautiful, intelligent woman. I will give up my music collection to find my wife again. I wouldn't. I'm very lucky. Well, I have no idea why people have more luck than others.
Yeah.
I miss my dad. I wish I could talk to 5 minutes with him and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. But some people, males in general, they guys in general don't open up that much. I'm very different because I grew up. Seven women in my life raised me. Well, I have 4 sisters. We had 2 helpers at home that were helping my mom and my mom. So I was raised. I have more female mentality in many ways than male mentality. So with my wife, I don't have any problem opening up and things. But in guys in general, males are kind of feel weak, showing their emotion or opening up or maybe the relation that you did have with your dad or I have with my dad is
Yeah, I think that generation, especially the Second World War and the rest of it, I think men, had to just, carry it and go forward and, be strong. I'm glad to be a child of the 60s where, there was a lot of it that was bullshit, obviously. But at the same time, I think it was a considerable change in terms of what men could be. We were allowed to cry. We were allowed to feel emotion and not think that was unmasculine. But,
you have any kids that will continue with your business after?
I'm sorry?
Any of your children will continue with the business after?
No kids, didn't do it. Which is, I mean, Tom Eaton, my engineer, I think will be the guy who inherits my legacy. He's worked with me for 20 years or so. And best engineer and co-producer. Again, the fact that for the first time in my life, I wrote that Tom was my producer. But that friendship and that partnership is huge. And I think I would have quit by now, but I just so adore working with Tom. Tom is making a record with my wife.
Wow.
If you see the credit on our productions, Noah Wilding is her performing name. But Susan Whittle is her actual name. But Noah Wilding is that magical voice that we've had on 40 records or something like that. She's just a genius. She brings tears to my eyes when I watch her open up and do what she does. I mean, what's more intimate? I mean, yeah, I'm playing a guitar and the rest of it, but this is coming from her. And God, she's just so brilliant. But luckily, the latter part of my life, I figured out what love was supposed to be. I'm not pretending that I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I learned enough to actually be able to sustain a relationship with a wonderful woman. So I'm very grateful for that.
Mm.
Let's do, anyway, so you've just been pretty much in my office, coming down.
Yep. Man, what an amazing place, man.
Nice, nice functional kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm carrying how's that for?
Yeah. Man, amazing, man.
This is my next door neighbor, Dan Snow, who is a world famous stone mason. He works, this is the only job he ever did with mortar, holding the things together. Hey, Tika, say hi. Hey, you. Hey, Tika.
Oh.
Hey, Tika, where did you go? Come here, silly dog. I can't get the right angle.
That's okay.
Maybe my wife will be more.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm trying to catch a wasp.
Really?
There's a wasp stuck in here.
But we just had a wonderful interview. I mean, just absolutely great.
Huh.
Oh, can you see the wedding pictures there?
Yeah. Oh, they're very nice, man.
Yeah, that was in Nocella above Positano.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's where the album come from then, the name.
Yeah, well, it's been an important part of my life for a long time. Well, this is a new print of, this is a mountain that I've climbed many times, not always to the, let me get this, let's see, how does that work? Isn't that a beautiful photo?
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah, I'm doing everything backwards here. Anyway, yeah, that's Mount Whitney in California. I got this crazy thing. I had been in Nepal and did a little bit of trekking, but I ended up, it's a very weird thing. I was on the outskirts of Kathmandu. I mean, Kathmandu is a kind of a hideous city. It's, terrible. See, now we're at the outside under the wisteria arbor. I just
turn the computer a little down so I can see the picture. Right there. Right. Yep.
All right. I went out, I was at the monkey temple, and the fucking monkeys, they beat you up to get money, and they won't take coins. They want paper money, because obviously they've got their trainers, but they'll scratch your eyes out if you don't give them some money. So you give them some money. I was like, well, fuck this. And I took a walk. The monkey temples, at least in those days, was the very end of the town. And I just said, screw it. I'm going to walk through the fields around back to get to the Akinyeti Hotel where I was staying. So I'm walking through these grasslands, and I hear this giggling coming up, and these kids. And the next thing I know, they're taking my hands, and I'm just going wherever they're going. And it ended up going to an orphanage of kids for Tibetan descent. And I met a guy named Balaraj, and I ended up being there was a song I had called A Happy Home in Kathmandu, and then I had a little liner note saying, this is about an orphanage, and we're trying to build a new place. All the water system of Kathmandu is so bad that even the most expensive hotel, the Akinyeti Hotel, they give you duct tape to put on your mouth so you don't inadvertently drink something out of the shower. That's how bad it is. Wow. So I, along with a woman named Alice Waters, not the chef, but a woman in England, we together, and I had a song called A Happy Home in Kathmandu, and if you wanted to contribute. And long story short, she and I managed to get enough money to buy the land, dig a healthy well, build the home, build the school, build the infirmary. And the king of Nepal asked what he could do for me. And I knew that the Kanchenjunga region was closed because of sort of a minor border war going on. You know, there wasn't anything, you know, too big, but for the time being, I guess they were just being really careful. Anyway, he gave me a permit to the Kanchenjunga. And I took a Nepalese Air Force helicopter with my legs dangling out the door and X straps, you know, so I'm just, you know, the doors are off and we're going along the crest of the Himalaya and ending up at a little village called Lalep, and then trekked all the way up to base camp on Kanchenjunga, which is the third highest mountain in the world. And we went up to second base camp. And by that time I was beginning to show a little bit of elevation, you know, elevation sickness. Because I hadn't taken enough time to get to Lalep, which was at about 11,000 feet. Long story short, I had the trip of a lifetime. The only Westerners in the entire region, you know, and you look at Everest now and, you know, just all the lines and all the crazy shit. We didn't see a single Westerner for the entire time. So that's something that I've been thinking a lot about. As I get older, I'm now thinking so much about gratitude. I find that is one of the things that just rules my life is, you know, thank you, thank you, thank you. I get to say thank you for, you know, admittedly my third marriage, but the perfect one. I fall more in love with her every day. My dog is, without question, the cutest and smartest dog in the world, and I'm not listening to arguments to any contrary. But you know, this has been, I mean, look, you know, I don't sleep well. My memory isn't what it used to be. I'm not, clearly I'm not losing my mind, but you know, you get older and it gets a little mushy. You know, and I'm tired a lot because I don't sleep. I might have lost the capacity to sleep properly. I keep going to doctors and hoping they'll be able to help me. But the net result is, as I lay dying, I will be able to say, I was really here. You know, I really lived this thing. I did almost everything. You know, one of the things about religion, you know, there's so much things about balance. And I remember I had a therapist at one point said, Will, your idea of balance is an excess of all things, which I thought was one of the great compliments of my life. I guess what I'm trying to get around to is that I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here, but I will be able to leave very gracefully. I have just eaten this motherfucker up. I have gobbled it up, and to hell with balance and, you know, a balance. Yeah, the guy said, you know, Will, your idea of balance is an excess of all things. Yeah, I'm not an aesthete. I'm greedy. And I love it.
Have you done a sleep apnea studies?
Oh God, yeah. There's no apnea.
Don't you take like a pill to sleep or no? Or it doesn't work?
No, it doesn't work. No, it's look, I've got money. I've been to every sleep clinic in America. They can't do anything. I mean, and you know, I've done everything except, you know, although, you know, if they told me that rat droppings, you know, if rat shit would cure it, I'd do it. But I've gone down just about every road there is, and every new age person has some other idea and the rest of it. And I've pretty well tried everything, but you know, look, I've had a great time.
I take a couple of pills for it's called, I think, melatonin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's natural. At least for me, it works. I try to go to the gym and
Yeah. No,
jacuzzi or to slow me down because I'm very hyper.
Yeah. No, melatonin. I believe me.
I've tried everything.
Yeah, it's like, here's some rat shit. Eat that. Okay, I'll try that. Whatever it is. But I mean, I must have done 100 things by now, and I kind of am despairing a bit, but at the same time, I get to be here. I get to make music for a living. I've got the best wife in the world and the cutest dog in the world. So I just can't complain too much. If my cross to bear is insomnia, then, and believe me, with the money I've got, you look at me. I mean, I don't spend money on gold and shit. Travel is all I want. My cars are years old. I don't give a fuck about any of that. I mean, I like a nice hotel. I like to be able to travel, and a good meal, sure. But, money, I'm all set. I can do it. And I've been everywhere. I've been to every clinic. I've been to every hospital. But maybe sometime we'll find it.
All your life, were you like that?
No, yeah, well, yeah, but it's just gotten worse and worse as you get older.
Oh.
But look, come on, I've had a wonderful ride, and I'm still, I have the best wife in the world, and you may have, the other best in the world.
Yeah, I have. No question about it, man. No question about it.
Yeah.
Like you, I've been very fortunate in my life. I have done a lot of good things, a lot of stupid things, but I'm very fortunate. I'm a very lucky guy to be alive.
Yeah.
Not with COVID, nothing happened to have a wonderful woman, a crazy son like myself, and he need to, my son, like I did, need to find his own space in the world, and then find himself, whether it's school or music or this or that, whatever. I'm as a dad, I'm here to provide guidance, but to help out. But you need to fail. You need to do a stupid thing.
Right.
And figure it out. If you're ready when you're 18, that's great. If you're ready when you're 20 to move in your life, that's great. Who I am to judge with my son. I was the same, and I was worse.
Right. And me too. Just, although I lived with two heroin addicts, and they were always saying, "Oh man, you got to do this." And I looked at their life, and it's just, they get in the morning, they'd smoke some dope, they'd maybe eat something, they'd shoot up twice in a day. And, oh man, you got to try this. And it's like, man, I'm looking at you guys. I sure as hell don't want to live like you're living. So that was kind of good to see that early on. I probably drank too much expensive wine at some point in my life, and I can't really do that much anymore. But luckily, I never fell into some terrible.
Any Chilean wine?
Oh, of course, God, yeah,
the best wine in the world, man. I'm a beer type of guy, but wine from Chile is unbelievable. When I was living in Chile, I didn't drink that much, and when I came to the United States to study, I hanging out with all the American kids, and we began drinking beer at school and college, and then eating Hawaiian pizza. So that was our diet and going to class.
Well, we were supposed to be in Argentina 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but the whole COVID thing, it was going to be fly into Buenos Aires and then fly to San Carlos de Bariloche.
Yeah.
And then down to the Fitzroys, and then get on Route 40 and drive all the way up to the Mendoza.
Yeah.
And then Aconcagua, and then back and drive back to Buenos Aires. So that this was interrupted, but we're going to go soon. It's a dream of a lifetime to get there. And I had the crazy thing happen. Now, where are you now?
I live close to Washington DC. I live in Fairfax, Virginia.
Yeah, okay.
Like 20 minutes from Arlington.
Yeah. No, I know it. I called this hotel in San Carlos de Bariloche, and we talked to the woman who was the manager of it, and and we talked about the rooms and blah 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 and all this stuff, and I don't know, I kind of like, yeah, you can do it on hotels.com, but I kind of like to talk to the people and hear about their place. And we got to the end, and she said, okay, well, let's credit card. And I gave her the number, and she said, oh, what's the name on the card? And and what's it? I said, it's Will Ackerman. And I thought that the line had gone dead. And she said, and finally she said, are you the guitarist? And I said, yeah. I mean, it's like,
Wow.
I didn't know anybody knew me she said, are you kidding? No, you're like, all of our friends are huge fans. Anyway, long story short, we talked about doing a house concert at the hotel.
Yeah, like a residency.
And she said, you play light gauge strings, don't you? And I'm like, holy shit. She said, well, my husband is a crazy guitarist. And so she said, well, here, what we're going to do is we're going to get all these guitars from Buenos Aires and we'll bring them over. And then my husband will do the tuning for your open tunings, and you do that. And then we'll give you the room for, the
You can study for free. Yeah.
And, she said, where else are you going? I said, well, we're blah, blah, blah. And we're going up to Mendoza. And she said, oh, maybe get another property in the Mendoza. And so another concert? She said, yeah. So that was that. Anyway, but then COVID happened, but we're going to get back there. And
when the next year? It's coming or not? Yeah.
It'll be probably February, January, February, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, if you ever go there, or you need translation or whatever, let me know if I can help out.
Well, let's stay in touch. I believe me, I don't normally go on this long. I usually try to get the fuck out of there as soon as I can. But
it was very nice talking to you, Will, and believe me, I will visit you if you say, well, we are available the third week of September or whatever. I will, whatever is convenient, I will visit you there with my little guy and my wife, and yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure.
Same here, Will, man. You're a very good guy, man. You're a very good.
You too. But these things I have to often just sort of wrap up in 15 minutes just to sort of get it done. But I feel like we established a friendship and we had a great.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I do hope we'll stay in touch.
Me too, Will. Say hello to your wife, and good luck to you. We'll be in touch very soon, man. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.